Hello, my name is Ryan Gottfredson, and I'm the Wall Street Journal and USA Today best-selling author of the books Success Mindsets and The Elevated Leader. And I am a leadership development professor and consultant. And what that means is I have the unique opportunity to go across organizations and industries and study leaders and to help them to develop. Because here's what I find, is that leaders operate with different levels of sophistication and quality. You get a few leaders who are really bad. You also get a few leaders who are really great, amazing, what I call elevated leaders. What I find is that most leaders operate at a good level. They're doing a good job, not yet doing a great job. And I see it as my job to help leaders to level up from that good level up to that great level. And what is really helpful for me as I help leaders in this process is to explain to them what are some of the unique characteristics of elevated leaders that set them apart from good leaders. And I want to share with you one of those characteristics. And it's one that I think is one of the most vital characteristic differences between elevated leaders and great leaders. So to step into this, what you need to understand, and I'm going to present to you a framework that involves two different curves. And I'm going to talk about one of these curves first, and then I'll introduce the second curve. Now, what you need to understand is that across organizations, nations, societies, that they follow these two curves. You could find these two curves in any organization, nation, or society. That could be the Roman Empire. It could also be Sears, as an example. They're going to follow these two curves. Now, the first of these curves is what we call the financial curve. This is the curve that most organizational leaders intently focus on. This is their priority. Now, what we're going to see, again, we could use Sears as an example, is where you see with Sears, there's a lot of growth. They kind of plateaued there at the top, and then there was a decline. And now they're effectively out of business, right? So I'm not sure where your organization is, but it's somewhere here along this financial curve. Now, if I'm a leader and I'm intently focused on the financial curve, where am I most likely going to try to activate change in the organization, change in the culture, right? It's right when we start to hit that decline on the financial curve, right? And that makes sense. Like, oh, things aren't working. We better change some things, right? And that makes sense, but only to the certain extent that we are focused on the financial curve. Because remember what I told you, there are two curves involved in any organization. And the second curve often goes neglected. The second curve is the culture curve. Now, the culture curve has a unique relationship with the financial curve in two different ways. The culture curve first precedes the financial curve. There's always a lag in investment. If I invest in the culture curve, we're not really sure when that's going to pay off on the financial curve. But we know it happens. We're just not sure how long. And that makes leaders a little bit apprehensive about investing in culture because there is a certain level of uncertainty about when it will pay off on the financial curve. So that's the first lesson. The culture curve precedes the financial curve. Second, the culture curve sets the ceiling for the financial curve. The organization's financial curve can only go up to a certain extent that the culture is healthy. And if we see an organization through the lens of both of these curves, where are we most likely to activate change in the organization and in the culture? At the pinnacle of that culture curve. Because we want to alter its trajectory so that it continues on that upswing. But that's also the time where most leaders who neglect the culture code are not likely to activate change because they're coming into the height of their financial curve. Things are working well. There is no reason for them to change from that financial curve perspective. But this is what sets apart elevated, great leaders from just good leaders. Elevated leaders understand both of these curves. They're focused on both. They can't neglect one or the other, but they do recognize the role that the culture curve plays in its effect on the financial curve. Thus, the most elevated leaders focus deeply on culture because they know there's going to be a massive return on their investment there. Good leaders simply don't invest much in the culture curve because it's hard for them to see or understand what they can expect in terms of their return on investment there. So if you want to be an elevated leader, you've got to prioritize the culture curve. This means you've got to be measuring culture in your organization. You got to be focused on things like clarity of purpose, clarity of values, psychological safety, engagement, making sure that your employees feel like they are valued, that they matter. These are all things that need to be prioritized, and these are all things that elevated leaders do prioritize. You read about leaders like Satya Nadella at Microsoft, Alan Mulally at Ford, Mary Barrett at GM. These are all leaders who understand that there are both of these curves and they're prioritizing that culture curve. So I hope this expands your perspective and helps you to feel more motivated to focus on the culture curve so that you can operate more as an elevated leader.